unusual to me. Like other organizations, like in Australia, there's a Center for Research. In the US, there's several centers for research. India, China, they have centers for research in academic institutions, and we in Canada do not. And although, I know working at Carleton University, there is research going on, and there's other research going on, but it's not focused, it's not centered to the benefit of the center.
I would contend that we do have a Center for Research. It's a Library of Parliament. Members of Parliament, there's those members that said, rely heavily on the Library of Parliament to provide research. When we sit down to look at legislation, every meeting we go to, there's a report from the Library of Parliament researchers on issues. They don't take a political stand, which is, that becomes our job to political stand. But they do a lot of the because it's not called a research center. People might not recognize it, but the Library of Parliament is a huge resource that is supportive of government in this country. And you should recognize that. There's very bright people there doing some extraordinary good work.
Is that research public? If they give you a report, is it something?
Lots of it is.
Yeah.
The website's brilliant.
Yeah.
Like every new piece of legislation, it's often a legislative summary,
That's right.
there's reports.
Right.
It is if I'd been in university through the internet.
Anyone else before we move on? Okay. So as I said, we'll start to get a little bit into the micro and I guess some tactical issues actually. And I want to put Rachel on the spot a little bit here. Rachel, as mentioned, has extensive background and experience in some really successful government relations work. And so I was just wondering from your perspective, as we now re-embark on the world of a minority parliament, and with not just, and with the strength again of the Bloc Québécois, with another actor in the mix, how is this going to change things in terms of how you go about your work? And what do you see as the challenges, but also the possibilities in this world that we're in right now?
Yeah, I'm in a very different position than I was like over a year ago. So with Boys and Girls Clubs, we had done extensive work to bring clubs together and to identify key policy areas. So the Child Welfare League of Canada is a member-based organization, and it's a vast membership. I mean, we have about 85 members, but there are child welfare agencies, Indigenous organizations, national youth serving agencies, accreditation agencies, researchers, and governments, provincial and territorial governments. So I haven't done the legwork of identifying, we have broad priorities, but doing that work of building consensus on specific policy asks, that's still to be done. I'm a year in, and that's some work that needs to be done. So I think what I would be doing in the next few weeks is to, looking at the speech from the throne, the mandate letters, looking at what is in there that connects to what I know people are doing. What are some of the issues for children and youth across the country? And the folks in our circles, they're serving children and youth and families who are really struggling with poverty, with several factors in a context of poverty. So mental health issues, addictions, disabilities in a context of poverty, which makes them extremely vulnerable. So I think there are definitely policy advocacy positions that we will be, bringing forward, but I'm still, now I'm back to the starting point of building that consensus and that sense of, yes, we can do something together within my membership, but then also bringing together outside folks, broader people who are, there's a desire for people to come together around each other's issues to advocate, to try to find what those issues are, where the consensus is, or where it sticks. So I don't know, it's not quite the answer you're looking for, but that's the word ahead for us. Yeah. So I would suggest anybody, that's what anybody would have to do. Look at their priorities, look at how they stick and connect to what you're doing, and where you could actually help advance the priorities of the government. But then also look, because it's a minority government, look at each party, their shadow cabinets, their, go meet with them, don't, just talk to everybody and see where your ideas and where your priorities are connecting to those different people, and then make sure that you build allies within every party, and then that's how you can probably influence and demonstrate how they can advance their own agenda with your help in a non-partisan way.
So basically,
It's
find
a
an
cut.
extra 8 or 9 hours a day.
Yes, sleep is down to 2 hours next year for me.
Any of our other panelists have any thoughts on this? The minority versus the majority situation?
I think it's just going to be really trying to, I think looking at all the mandate letters is going to be important, and it's really going to be trying to figure out what their priorities are, and then we're going to have to talk to more than one space. It's harder to do. I mean, it can be more successful if there are some priorities that we want to push for that we know that 2 or 3 of the parties would support, and it might be I'm going to say easy win. I don't really like that language, but it might be something the government feels they want to show they're doing things, they want to show that they're progressing, they might be willing to do. And I think that the mandate letters, which will either come out, they're either going to come out tonight or sometime soon, will probably be a good indication of where they're moving or where they think they can take the agenda in the next couple of years. And then so looking at that, understanding it, and then trying to figure out the priorities that might fit with that, I think is really going to be important. And then it's a lot of work. And I think that making sure that that there is enough support, it's not just focused on one party, is probably important. Find the champions. It's helpful because if there's an election and something different happens, at least we've been talking to more than one party. But I'm not as I haven't done GR the way as a lawyer, but I think that's the gut reaction. It's just you have to get out there and really try to push it.
And if possible, do it with other organizations. Try
Yeah.
to find common ground
Yeah.
with others and go together. It's much easier for the parties to say,
Right.
it's not just one. I don't have to listen to 22. They're all here.
Yeah, that's right. Senator, do you have any comments on this question?
I think you have to deal with all the parties. I think you have to build those. As I said earlier, when we were raising money, we have relationship building with our donors. You now have to build a relationship with the political parties, all of them, and it's important. And those relationships are you may start those relationships on a need to do for a particular project, but it's a long-term relationship you need to be building up. And you build it up with, yes, certain members of Parliament, members of the Senate, but you need to build it up with the party itself, because the members come and go at the whim of the elected or at the whim of nominations of the political party. You need to build those relationships up so that it's long-term. And it's all the political parties all have a stake in this. And I think that in today's environment with a minority government, if you build up your relationship with them, if you build a relationship with every other party, as well as working on the government party, that we may be able to get some things done that we never would have gotten done in a majority government. Because we've got parties who were sympathetic to some of the things we want to do, who now have greater influence on the government, even though they are not the party in power. They are the party with the votes that the government needs to survive. And that's the reality of politics.
Somebody behind you. Yeah.
So, just to give a bit of a background, I work for Senator Owen Barr, so and I've worked in politics for about 10 years now. So a a couple things that we've been grappling with about trying to sell the report to the government and all that sort of stuff is, I think there's a couple things. One is the sector, and I'm going to be honest, so please bear with me, and this is my perspective, this is not a senator perspective, but it is something that we are talking about, and it's just, the sector isn't really looked at as a whole as an economic driver. People don't know that. They don't know that it's, 150 billion, a year for economic activity, 8% of GDP, all that sort of stuff. 2 million people. They don't know that it's an economic driver. They feel like it's only about the end result of helping people, which is important too, which creates sympathy, but they don't feel that economic driver. They don't feel any sort of pressure. Political parties are now in a minority government, so they will respond to pressure. They will respond to people talking to them about votes, talking to them about communities, talking to them about different things. So what I would suggest is this is the time to start putting that pressure on all the parties, all of the relationships matter, but pressure is where they will want. Minority governments only last for, on average, around 2 years. So this is a moment where you can use that minority government where there's pressure out there, where people want to court votes, where they want to go into an election, whenever that election is going to be. This is the time to this is one of the moments in time where that can really happen. And I think the other thing is that the charity sector, to me, is sort of caught between two worlds. One is they advocate for the issues they care about. So those are the movements and those are the things. But they have a lot harder time advocating for themselves. So figuring that out and figuring that perspective out where maybe, yes, there are 42 recommendations. Yes, not everyone's going to agree on all 42 recommendations. But coming together as a common sector as much as possible, as a common voice as much as possible, putting that pressure on as much as you can, I think that is where you need to go in the next couple of years, especially. I mean, these are all things you can do for the next 20 years, but these are things in the next little while that I think are important to do. So people in government, MPs of all parties, and also even senators for that matter, feel and take into consideration when they're doing their policy work.
Yeah. A great addition to that too is where to permeate or infiltrate, whatever word you want to use. Rachel, you mentioned the shadow cabinet and who the critics are, and I think a untapped opportunity are the standing committees too, the parliamentary standing committees. In a minority situation, the opposition parties are going to hold a lot of power and who they bring to witness and their voice on studies. And that might be a way too to bridge the charities' issues with the recommendations of the report. So, if you have charities that are interested in labor or immigration or foreign affairs or Canadian heritage, they can go and present and make sure that the charity recommendations and the overall context of the sector, that voice is heard, and it may just reach more MPs in a way that's authentic and actually makes its way into more reports and more departmental considerations. So another suggestion.
Yeah, is that okay?
Yeah.
Just want to pick up on sort of the comments around selling to government and building a relationship with the government. And I think it's really important, particularly sort of the time that we're in, this minority government. But there's sort of I want to take a slightly sort of longer view to this, and it, kind of picking up from what you said is how do you sell this to civil society, right? And you kind of you look at sort of the most recent sort of developments of the trust barometer, trust in NGOs and civil society organizations is like 57% globally. In Canada, it's about 67%. So we're nice people, but 67% is still. Right, so I think there's a bigger challenge ahead of us of how we build trust with civil society. I think once we do that, as we kind of do that, the pressure and the selling to government.
Yeah, just some comments on, working together of minority government, having to some shift dynamics to move things forward. you know, doing a lot with fewer people, changing dynamics and influence. Like, who is better to know that? Like, charities are told to collaborate, to do more with less. I mean, you know, that is a great position to speak to a government, that you have one. So, you know, I think the other challenge is often with a big, sort of trying to get to the decision makers requires a bit of a generalized message, so you're almost flattening the textures of what is really happening. And so to not lose that nuance while still being able to draw the attention to the message is going to be an important part of the advocacy, so that balance. I think that's really important. You know, we're sitting here in the SDGs have